Okay. Hi, my name is Adam Glickman. I come from Fairwood Elementary School, and I am here to talk to you, Phil Reed, about because you're an expert on fuel economy, and my environmental project that I was assigned to do was about oil spills in our oceans. And I think one thing that really affects our oceans is cars. And I know you're a person who knows a lot about them. And fuel economy, because, fuel is the main thing that gets in our environment. So I have a few questions to ask.
Sounds good.
Okay. Please introduce yourself. Tell us about your job.
Okay. My name is Phil Reed, as you mentioned. I'm the Senior Consumer Advice Editor for Edmunds.com. Before I came to Edmunds.com, my father was actually an MIT professor, and he was very involved in testing car engines and different types of fuels. So he tested ethanol, which you've probably heard of, and methanol. And so I grew up with my father doing all these tests and measuring fuel economy. So when I came to Edmunds.com, I was very interested in trying to let people know simple ways to save gas.
So you were pretty ahead of the pack already.
Well, that's
you had a head start.
I did because of my father's.
Background of. So we'll get to our real first question. Do you know how regular cars harm our environment? Regular gases.
Well, you mentioned oil spills. Of course, oil spills occur when people are transporting crude oil to a refinery, which of course is because it's going to eventually wind up in a car. So that's one way, which is the oil spill. So there's also what they call well-to-wheels impact, meaning all the way from the oil well to the wheels of your car. So there's that whole thing which most people don't think about. They just think about the wheels of the car going forward. So when you're drilling for oil, you're releasing a lot of emissions into the atmosphere. When you're transporting the oil, those oil tankers use a lot of energy to take it there. Oil refineries also have a lot of emissions. So all of these things are before it even gets to your car. But once it gets to your car, one of the really significant impacts is the release of carbon dioxide, which is causing global warming. So that could potentially be the most serious impact of all for cars. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is that there's a new technique in exploring for oil now called fracking. And fracking is a very sort of controversial method of getting oil out of the ground. So there's a lot of ways that it impacts our environment.
I have another question, a few more.
Sure.
How are electric cars better for the environment than your average car?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that this is a very controversial subject, because a lot of people say, well, electric cars are no cleaner because they have to get the electricity from somewhere, so they get it from a power plant, and the power plant could be running on coal, which is somewhat dirty too. But the fact of the matter is that coal generation is a much more efficient generation of electricity, so you're not releasing as much carbon dioxide into the atmosphere with an electric car. One of the things that's really good about electric cars is that a normal gasoline car, when it's first turned on, is not efficient. Because cars are designed so that until they heat up, they're not fully functional. So when you first turn your car on in the morning, for the first 2 or 3 minutes, it's releasing a lot of pollutants because the catalytic converter is not hot, and the car's not running efficiently, so it's burning more gas than it should. Now, an electric car doesn't have that warm-up process. You push a button, and it's ready to go, and there's no warm-up. And when you shut it off, it doesn't have to cool down. So it's a very sort of efficient way to handle personal transportation needs.
So a lot of people think, oh, it's just 2 or 3 minutes, but
yeah.
How much does that let out in 2 or 3 minutes? A lot, or?
Yes, well, proportionally speaking. So in other words, if you were to take like 5 short trips during a day, so you go to the store, the car cools down again, has to be warmed up again. So with an electric car, you may save 5 of those times when you're extra polluting.
How about a hybrid? How are those better for the environment?
Hybrids are kind of like a step toward electric cars. It's like an electric car, but it still has a gasoline engine. The difference is that the gasoline engine is off some of the time. In fact, quite a bit of the time. One of the things that hybrid cars do is, like, say you come to a stoplight, and the stoplight is 2 or 3 minutes long, and you know how stoplights, how long they can feel like. Well, the car shuts down during that time, so it's not releasing emissions. And as soon as you step on the gas, immediately it snaps back and begins to transport you. So there, it saves in a number of ways, but let me just say this because I think you'll get a kick out of it. That, okay, you're in your car and you're coming toward a stop sign.
Red light.
Yeah. Normally what happens in a car is you step on the brake, right? Well, energy is converted into heat because your brake pads squeeze the rotors, and it's just lost. But in an electric car, in a hybrid car, that energy is temporarily stored in a battery, and when you take off again, it's used. So you're not losing all of this potential energy that you would normally have.
So that probably also means you don't have to get as much gas because it stops.
Exactly.
So that would mean less oil used also.
Yes, yes. And very, very significant. I mean, the Prius gets roughly 50 miles per gallon. A lot of pickup trucks and SUVs get 12 miles per gallon. So you can see that that's a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean,
Gigantic savings.
it's huge.
Yeah.
Save money on gas and you help the environment. So
People that get hybrid cars usually wind up really loving them.
I can tell why. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that, and they're compact and they're not as luxurious. I mean, but they're super.
Most of them, you're right, they're more sort of like an economy
But
type
they're-
of a car.
But there's still two great things about them:
Mm-hmm.
money saving,
Yes.
and they're great for the environment. So
Well, actually, they're a little bit more expensive to buy, which makes them a little controversial because we have what we call a payback period, meaning that you pay a little bit more for the hybrid, but it saves you money on gas. So after a year or two, now you're saving a lot of money.
the long-term effect is better than the short-term.
Yes, very much.
So how can cars use less gasoline or get better miles per gallon?
Well, you already mentioned hybrid cars, but there's a number of things that people can do to get better gas mileage. One of them is stop driving like idiots. You know, because people accelerate so fast because they always want to be first. You know, it's kind of like when you're in school and everybody runs for the playground. They want to get there first, or to the lunchroom or whatever. Everybody in cars, they do the same thing, and they're grown-ups. They should know better. You know. Anyways, the acceleration phase of driving uses an enormous amount of energy because you've got a 2,000 or 4,000 pound SUV that's just sitting there, and it wants to go 0 to 60 in like 7 or 8 seconds. That consumes a lot of energy. But if you were to go very slowly, it would consume.
So I think this was great. Thank you very much.
Well, you asked really good questions, and good luck with your project.
I enjoyed interviewing you.
Oh, thank you very much. I enjoyed the questions.